Man, I should have made this video before the reveal that Yamato and Carrot wouldn't join the crew, because now people are already coming around to my way of thinking already. So this isn't quite as much of a hot take anymore. I will say this though, I had this take before it was popular, okay? I was in on the ground floor. I've been ruining fun for years now by saying the cute bunny girl and the big boobed Oni were not gonna join the crew. So when they didn't join the crew and they were basically confirmed a couple of weeks ago to not be joining, I wasn't really upset, and I wasn't really relieved either. I kind of just felt like, yeah, that's about right. That's what I wanted to happen. So the reason I hate fun, for me, it comes down to narrative structure, all right? First of all, I feel like everyone's probably noticed this by now, but One Piece is kind of coming to an end, and adding another character to the core cast like 88% of the way through a story isn't really the best idea to begin with. It's not the only problem, but it's worth mentioning. By the time the story's done, as popular as Yamato is, he'll feel like a bit player even till the end. For example, like for the longtime One Piece fans who were reading back in Thriller Bark days, when Brook joined, it took a while to acclimate to the idea that he was part of the crew. It kind of felt like he was a Straw Hat just in name until he really accomplished something within the crew's dynamic. And actually, because they got separated and because of the time skip, he really didn't feel like part of the crew. Probably not until Whole Cake Island, when he was actually accomplishing things for the story at the same level as the other Straw Hats. My point is that if Yamato joined at the 11th hour, this feeling would be permanent and unchangeable when the series ended. And before I get to the big guns, let me also point out that Yamato would be a first for the Straw Hats in quite a few ways if he did join the crew. Same with Carrot. I mean, each has had tragedies in their own way, but neither has had a really focused narrative around their tragic past or like an arc of overcoming that to live for the future, which all the other core Straw Hats have had. Granted, Nami and Robin had their character arcs a little while after they were introduced into the story and superficially became parts of the crew, but Yamato and Carrot don't have the luxury of that because we're entering the final saga, and it would be weird to dedicate the final saga to Yamato or Carrot's character arcs. Also, it's a bit less important, but it's worth mentioning anyway. A crew member joining is kind of structured around Luffy winning them over. Oda said in an interview at some point that he bases certain arcs around a character deciding to join Luffy's crew because otherwise it would feel weird if they just decided to drop everything for him. And he can always change his mind, but it doesn't really matter too much. My point is that the narrative of a Straw Hat changing their minds to join is kind of baked into the story. Every single Straw Hat had to be convinced to join. Even Brook, who agreed immediately, didn't really truly accept the position in the crew since he knew he couldn't join with the whole Shadow situation. Maybe an argument could be made that Yamato's father was a similar obstacle to Brook's shadow, but that feels a bit less like a character-driven arc to me. But oh, that was just supplementary reasoning. You might be able to argue away any of those points and I'd be okay with it. What really makes me think another member after Jinbei can't join is this one scene. So this scene was great. I think we can all agree. It's as iconic as it deserves to be. I do want to take it a step further and say that this scene, more than any other that the series has had or will have, defines the importance of each member of the Straw Hat crew. Let's take a step back and look at the series as a whole. The narrative structure seems to be that the East Blue is the initial setup / prologue, the Act 1. The Grand Line pre-time skip up to Thriller Bark is our first half of Act 2, the portion of the story where the heroes build themselves up and see some victories. And then Marineford is the narrative turning point with a huge loss that requires our main character to cope and learn something very important, so they can reevaluate and proceed with the rest of Act 2 and Act 3 of the story having changed. This follows your typical 3 and 4 act story structure, where the hero's lowest points or the dark middle chapter thing happens. Luffy's dark middle chapter is losing Ace in the war. So like I mentioned before, Luffy at this low point in the story needs to learn something big to change the flow of the rest of the story as it ramps up towards the end. And in a way, this could be the lesson of the story as a whole, the entirety of One Piece, demonstrated right here at this point in the narrative. So what's the turning point in the lesson that Luffy finds here? It's this scene. Luffy is dealing with this seemingly impossible challenge of moving forward when he feels responsible for Ace's death, but the impossibility of this challenge is overcome pretty simply when Luffy remembers his crew. It seems like a fast turn, and it seems kind of expected, but this was an important scene to have. I really do like that the only arc where Luffy truly fails is the one where he doesn't have his crew with him. I mean, if you're going with my take on the story, the lesson of the story is that having friends who fight with you will make any challenge possible, right? If Luffy's crew were with him and then he lost Ace at Marineford, that kind of would spit in the face of the lesson. Impel Down may have shown Luffy being incredibly capable of gathering allies and fighting on his own, but him on his own would never have overcome the situation on Marineford. So in a big way, to me, the most important page of the story is right here. It's a singular center page that defines the story's structure. And to me, it feels like anyone who wasn't here for Luffy at this very moment, anyone who wasn't able to help Luffy at the worst moment of his life, would always feel lesser in the story than other Straw Hats who were. Given Luffy's character, I'm sure if someone else joined the crew, Luffy wouldn't think less of them. He'd treat them all equally, I'm sure. But speaking purely narratively, no other character than these guys could hold up. Funnily, whenever I bring this up in conversation online, I feel like I'm trying to trick people, because you may have noticed there's one Straw Hat that isn't in this panel that still joined the crew. You know, giving it a moment's thought usually clears this up though, because of course the catalyst for Luffy remembering his crew in this moment is Jinbei, and I think this was very purposeful on the part of Oda. Of all the characters that assisted Luffy during the war, of everyone that would want to help Luffy in this situation after everything that happened, like Boa or Rayleigh or Ivankov, the only person really fit for the job was the one who was going to be part of the crew. Oh, and just to shore up any loose ends on how intentional I think that was, for the people who don't know, Oda did plan on Jinbei joining all along, at least according to the concept art from before the series started. So when Oda was writing for this moment, I'm sure he thought something like, I need everyone who will be on Luffy's crew to be here for him at this moment. So no, I don't think anyone else will be joining the crew after Jinbei, and I don't think anyone should. I really do get the hype of hoping for a new crew member to join. The first half of the series is kind of built around that, but clearly the second half of the series isn't about finding members to join the crew. I've kind of been wondering if that's why Jinbei's joining of the crew was spread out for so long now that they think about it. Maybe Oda tried to circumvent this question on everyone's minds, who will be the next to join, by always dangling the answer of Jinbei just in front of us. It is possible he tried to avoid setting the expectation of a new person joining, and he thought the best way to do that was by announcing who would be the next to join and then putting it off. And hopefully the audience will understand that no one will join until Jinbei does. And now that he has, we're moving into the final saga, so no one else can join after. I mean, yeah, that's all speculation, but it's just a thought. So yeah, no hate for either Yamato or Carrot, but I genuinely never believed they would join the crew. The way Oda confirmed they wouldn't be joining may have felt a bit weird or maybe even rushed, but I personally don't think he ever truly intended them to join the crew proper. How out of a take is that? I don't know. Hey, thanks for watching. I've got more One Piece videos planned, so feel free to subscribe if you want to see more, and you can follow my Twitter at 1000stupidwords if you want any updates. And if you want me to weigh in on any One Piece hot takes, let me know.